How might discontent be limiting you? Keep watching. This is Life Mastery Gym. I'm Damon, and I teach people just like you cutting-edge NLP processes and techniques so that you can master your life and take charge of your destiny. So if that sounds good, make sure you click that subscribe button right down here so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Unfortunately, a lot of people think of their discontent, their dissatisfaction, their lack of fulfillment in life as a fact of life that's just how it is, and there's nothing they can do about it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what that feeling is really about and what you can do about it. I've spent many years working on this for myself, and also I've worked with hundreds of clients on the same exact thing with amazing results. Not only have I helped many clients resolve their discontent and get what they want, I've repeatedly had to do this for myself, and this time that we're in right now with this pandemic has been no exception. So how might discontent be showing up in your life and limiting your life? When I work with clients, and like I said, when I do this for myself, or what I look for in my own life or in my clients' lives, is a sense of boredom is one indication that there's this discontent. Also, waiting for something to change, or waiting for something to get better, or waiting for someone else to do something so that you can then do or have or be whatever it is that you want to do, be, or have. Another one is blame. And it doesn't matter if it's blame for circumstances or blaming other people for it. And blaming circumstances, especially right now with this pandemic, is one that I've caught myself using, and it's one that a lot of us have been using to just say, okay, well, I have this discontent and there's nothing I can do about it. I think it's a good idea to accept your circumstances, accept what is happening, but that's different than saying, okay, I feel this way and there's nothing I can do about it. You can always do something about the way that you feel. You can't always do something about what's happening around you. You know, we can't suddenly snap our fingers and make this virus go away. But how you feel about it, how you react to it, how you respond to it, that you do have control over. And that's what NLP is all about. NLP is about understanding what you do have control over, which is your feelings, and taking that control back, taking that responsibility back for myself of what it is that I'm feeling. And that makes all the difference, because it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter what other people do. You can always shape your response to it. You can always shape your experience of it and your feelings of it. Now, some of you might be saying, well, no, how do I do that? I can't just make this feeling go away. And you're right. And you especially don't want to fight the feeling. That's not what we want to do here. We never want to fight our feelings. Feelings are important. They're not something to be overlooked, but you can reframe things so that you don't have those feelings anymore. When we think about what all of these things have in common, this boredom, this waiting for something to happen, waiting for or blaming other people, blaming your circumstances, what do all of these things have in common? What they all have in common is powerlessness. They make us feel powerless. And sometimes we do this on purpose. Like I said, sometimes we want to be able to feel powerless so we can have an excuse to not do something, to be lazy, to not do the things that we know that we're supposed to do, or to indulge in ways that we know is not good for ourselves, but we say, well, you know, this thing's going on, so I'm just going to go and do it. I'm going to drink a little bit more, or I'm going to drink on days that I don't normally drink on. I'm going to drink more than what I normally drink, or I'm going to binge on more Netflix because, we've got this pandemic thing going on. So it becomes an excuse. And the more you sink into that, the more you start to believe that, the more powerless you then become to your circumstances. So what are we to do about this? The first thing you have to do is first acknowledge that your discontent is about your feelings. No one made you feel this way. Circumstances didn't make you feel this way. It doesn't even matter if a person actually tried to make you feel this way, like they intentionally did something so that you would feel somehow unhappy or discontent. That is their attempt to do it, but you are ultimately in control of yourself. And the feelings that you're feeling, though they may seem like they have to do with something that you have no control over, like other people's behavior or your circumstances, your feelings are still under your control. And it can be a really hard thing to take responsibility for the feeling, not for other people's actions and not for circumstances, but take responsibility for the feeling. Now, I don't mean that in a blaming sort of way. Like, we don't want to blame ourselves. We don't want to beat ourselves up for the way that we feel. We just want to stop for a moment and say, okay, that feeling that I'm feeling, that feeling that I'm projecting onto other things and other people, which is what blame is, that's my feeling. The feeling is a reaction to those things. Those other things don't cause your feeling. Your reaction to them causes the feeling. And if you think about it, especially like circumstances, things that have no mind of their own, like a pandemic, there is no the pandemic is not doing something to you. It's happening, that's true, and it's your reaction to it, or the other circumstances that the pandemic triggers, being locked down, being quarantined. It is your emotional reaction to that that's causing the feeling. Now, most of the time, that happens unconsciously, and that's what makes it feel like you don't have control over it. That's what makes it feel like it's just that feeling is just sort of happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. But you can make it conscious. It may not have started out that way, and I just went through a bout of discontent. The same thing, the same way. It happened in my unconscious, and I became conscious of the feeling of discontent, but I didn't realize where it came from. And this is how it sneaks up on most of us. The reaction to circumstances, or the reaction to maybe even something really specific, like something someone said, that reaction often happens unconsciously, and then the feeling follows, a negative feeling, in this case, discontent. And that's what becomes conscious. And then we go, oh, I'm suddenly feeling this really negative feeling. And it does feel like you don't have control over it. Like I said, because you don't know where it came from. So if we stop, though, for a moment, maybe it's going to take more than a moment, might take a few, and say, okay, I accept that this feeling is mine and that I'm creating it. What is this about? And then go into it and see, okay, what is it really about? I'll give you an example of my own. Something happened where somebody did something. It was a mistake. But it was an honest mistake. When I say honest, it means they weren't intentionally negligent, or they certainly weren't trying to harm me or hurt me. And I got so angry about it. In fact, it was something that would normally pass over in maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Like it wouldn't even bother me anymore. But the next day I was still angry, and I was still hanging it on that other person and the mistake that they made. And I realized this is getting way out of control. There's no reason that I should still be angry about this. And sure, I could have bared down on it. I could have found more reasons to be mad at the person, found more reasons to be angry at the person, and justified that feeling, which is what a lot of us do. We look for justifications for our feelings, positive or negative. But instead, I walked it back and said, okay, well, what's really happening here? And I found so many other reasons for what was going on, which just had to do with my general discontent with the way things were in that particular context. And also just in other areas of my life, I realized there was a lot of other discontent happening in other areas of my life. And it all came through as a reaction to this one person's action, which was certainly not directed against me. And so look into your own life and follow that discontent, and just, first of all, welcome it. Take responsibility for it. Say, I know this is my feeling. And then where is it coming from? And you'd probably be really surprised the answers you will get. And that is the first step to getting clear about this and taking the wind out of this feeling of discontent. Once you start to understand it, once you start seeing what is really causing it, you will immediately feel that discontent start to dissipate. And then the next step is to ask yourself, well, what can you do instead? What can you do about this? You had all this discontent. You figured out what it was about. It was probably a lot of emotion getting packed into one thing that really wasn't what was causing it. As we know, None of these outside things, outside circumstances, other people's behavior isn't really causing our discontent. It's coming from us. But not only that, it's not like, oh, I feel this way and I shouldn't feel this way. No, there's something really valuable in this feeling. There's an opportunity in this feeling. Discontent is the beginning of change. It's the beginning of transformation. It's when you realize I'm not powerless I'm not powerless. I'm not hopeless to do anything. I can do something. What can I do about this? I'm going to go and do it. Normally when we feel discontent, and especially when we're blaming other things, other people, we are making ourselves powerless, because what we're saying is, well, I can't do anything until that person does something different. I can't do anything until this situation changes. But that's not true. Explore your discontent. Get clear about what is in your control and what is not. And then ask yourself, okay, honor that discontent, honor that feeling, and say, okay, well, what can I do about this? And once I started doing this more and more, it was like, wow, there's a lot here that I can do that I was not doing and I would not have done had I been blaming other people or blaming circumstances. So your solution is in the problem. And this is a very stoic way of going about it. And if you haven't explored stoicism, I highly recommend it. It fits really well with NLP. Our feelings don't tell us a lot of good information about what's going on around us. That is just the truth. But that is not to say that feelings aren't important. They are. And if you ignore them, they will come back to haunt you and cause destruction if you don't acknowledge them. So acknowledge them. And that is the route. Follow that discontent back to its origin. And then once you get there and you start really unpacking this, and I highly recommend journaling too. It always helps me in understanding what's going on when I'm having negative feelings or limiting feelings. And just really unpack this and understand it, and then ask yourself, okay, so what can I do? Because I'm not powerless. I'm not hopeless. There is something I can do here. And that re-engagement with life, instead of cutting yourself off by blaming, that in a sense is a way of distancing yourself from what's actually happening. So that reconnection with life, that re-engagement with life will immediately change that feeling of discontent, and it'll put the fuel back in you. And right away, you'll start thinking of things that you can do instead. And that's really what it's about. The discontent is a component of it is that hopelessness, that helplessness. So it feels really bad. But when you're re-engaged with life and you say, okay, I can't have control over everything, but I do have control over me, and you start taking actions, you start doing things, it doesn't even matter if the actions you take are even that effective. Just the fact that you're re-engaging and taking those actions will change everything. It'll transform that discontent into something really, really productive. If you would like more help with this, there's a free assessment that you can take that'll help you explore what it is that you really want, and even narrowing it down to the particular context in your life. You will find that link in the description right down here. Just click that link and you'll find the assessment, and you just answer some questions and you'll get a full assessment based on your answers. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out. And as always, if you can think of a friend or a family member who you think this video could help, make sure you share it with them. Take care.